How to install Werner 3-section loft ladder. This is the loft ladder I got from Wickes. Easy to install, and here's the result. So please follow on and watch for full detailed instruction. Back at the house, Saturday morning, third weekend. Gonna install one of these loft hatch ladders, and I'm going to fit it somewhere there in the ceiling. I'm going to try to find exact spot once I open the plasterboard. So let's get tools out. With loft hatch unpacked, we have 3-section wooden ladder. The loft hatch itself with a frame, and we got fitting instructions, and we got some parts. We got springs, we got fixing kit with all the bars, bolts, and the little feet that will go on the bottom of the ladder. And installation instructions. You got things we'll have to do is we'll have to assemble the hatch. So place the hatch down and then fit the ladders onto the hatch and load up the springs on. And then once that is done, we'll take our measurements and we'll trim the opening on the ceiling and then install it. The first thing, we're going to place protective hardboard on the floor and place the hatch onto that hardboard so it can be opened this way. Then we'll take our 3-section ladder, just see which way around. We'll go this way around. So the section has got little bolt lugs like that. That section will be turned towards the hinge side of the hatch. At this point, you'll have to lift the frame section up out of the way and then support it that way, because if you let it go, it'll just fall down. So I'm just going to use this scrap bit of bottom and tack one screw in the corner just to keep frame up out of the way. Now we can line up the ladder section and connect carrying bolts to the ladder. I'll just take this camera and you can see where we're gonna use the top one. So here's the hole. Where is it? There is a hole in the wood. Line that up with the top hole. And that hole in the wood on this side, it's got this metal grub nut sunk into it. Fixing holes are in the green bag. And then in this small clear bag, there will be these. Right, there then, M6 by 25. So just lift the ladder to the top hole on this angle bracket. You can just screw them in with your hands. Don't use heavy power tools. And just repeat on all four corners. The screws are PZ3, so PZ3 hand screwdriver will be handy, and just tighten them by hand. Do not use power tools because you don't want to strip it or split the wood behind. That's it. The next step, we'll be taking our arms, foldable arms, and installing them. They will go between this screw here and the hole in the frame on the front. Now let me try to show this a bit better. So these are the arms. You got two of them. They can slide. So you got two of them, two sections slide out. You got straight bit, and then we got cranked end with 4 holes on the end. So the crank's going out. So this one will be fitted to that side, and the other one will be fitted to the other side. So crank one way and crank the other way will go. Crank to the right will go to the right side, crank to the left will go to the left side. They're going to be fixed. Instead of this screw here, we'll undo this screw and we'll replace it with this screw here through this bottom hole. So the bottom hole of this crank will go there. We're not going to reuse that screw, we're going to use this one. Also we got the washer and the other screws, another one of them with the washer will go up here. That is about 16 inches from the hinge up the frame. And if you look behind this cardboard, there is that again metal nut, sunken nut in there. So it will go in order that we're gonna put bolt through it, and then washer, and then we're gonna screw it like that. But we got 4 holes, and 4 holes going to be determined. Which hole we're going to use is going to be determined by the height of the ceiling. So here are our 3 positions. Position 1 is the lowest one, position 4 is the furthest one to the end, depending on what height on the ceiling, what height of the ceiling we have. Again, they're all posi-free screws, so I'm going to use my posi-free hand screwdriver to screw them all in. It specifically says do not use power tools and do not over tighten. So to find the position hole we're going to use, we're going to measure the ceiling height. Our ceiling is going to be lowered for about inch, so that is going to be about 2460 in height. And 2460, it will be on the position 1, which is lower 1, because these are 4 different positions for a maximum ceiling height of 2810, 2849, 85 and 2918. Our one will be applicable to first one. Undo the bottom hinge screw, and we're going to use one of these bolts with a smooth shank by the head. Now you'll find out once you tighten that up, the bolt doesn't go all the way in and leaves a nice little slack there. And we're going to take a washer and the other screw. We'll slide the bolt through position 1 and then put washer on. Then we have to put it through our hole in the frame. Now, because I opened the frame a bit too far, I'm just going to lower my button and lower the frame down a little bit. There we go. So quite smooth. Feels and sounds like loads of work, but it's actually quite straightforward. And again, just hand tight, don't go mad. And then we're going to repeat same thing on that side. Undo the most bottom hinge screw. So now we have our arms connected. Now the next step will be to connect our springs. They are in a pink bag. There they are. Quite sturdy springs, so be careful with them. Follow the instructions exactly. Now, we got another bag that came out from the big green bag. There it is. And we have one eyelet with a, I would say that's M5 thread. We're not going to need that at the moment. We're only going to need these stainless steel hooks. So open the bag, get 4 hooks out. You will need 2 hooks per side. Now you'll notice each hook has got 2 different ends. One is curved more and one is curved less. They're all identical. So the one side that is curved more will be attached to the spring, and one that is curved less will be attached to either the ladder or the frame hinge. So to assemble the springs, we have to remove our temporary support button. Lower the frame down. I'm going to take one spring and two hooks, turn around. Now, on this little L bracket that ladder is connected to the hatch itself, we got the lower hole. We're going to connect the shallower hook on this wire to the lower hole from inside out. Then we're going to connect spring on it. Then we take the other hook, connect again with the end hook facing out of frame. We connect to that spring there. By putting knee against the frame, you're going to firmly grab the spring by the end here and guide this hook over the notch on the top hinge. And that's done. Make sure you don't slip, make sure you grip the spring really well, because otherwise it might bounce back and might hurt you. So we're going to do the other side exactly the same. So going to frame. So I'm going to show that now. You can see how the spring is hooked from inside out on one side, and again opposite to that from inside out on the other side. And spring is stretched and it's hooked out there on that top notch of the hinge, and same on that side there. So now we have arms, ladder, arms and springs connected. It says beware trap hazard. It's sharp hook, spring loaded. It's not very good idea to not be careful. You have to be careful there. Okay. Now by completing this ladder is now ready to be installed. Now we have to trim our opening to accommodate this ladder to be fitted in. Now regards to size, our loft hatch is 550 by 1130 in size. I'm going to make opening that is going to be 10 mm wider, it's going to be 560, and I'll make it 20 mm longer, it's going to be 1150 long. So there's a bit of play up within the opening, within the trimming, so we can make sure that our ladder can be squared up in case if the opening is not square enough. Now before you carry out any cutting on the roof, just get familiar with your roof construction. Now I got here an old water tank stand, so that's not part of the roof structure. We have a purlins. Purlin is up there, and purlin is a beam that connects all the rafters together. And then we got this binder that is again another piece of wood or beam that runs perpendicular to joisting, and joisting is connected to it. Now you're not allowed to cut purlin, and you're not allowed to cut that binder, because they are what binds all these roof timbers together in one continuous structure. You can cut individual joists, but don't cut more than two. If you cut more than two, you have to do some heavy strengthening. You will have to double each neighboring joist then, full length, and then put double trimmers in between them. So if you just have to trim one of them for loft hatch, that should be fine as long as you don't have a truss roof. Truss roof is one that has got loads of extra timbers in between on each pair. This is more of the traditional cut and pitch, where you have a ceiling joist as independent timbers, roof rafters, ridge board, purlin, and you got ceiling binders. So in this kind of construction, you can trim one joist, but if you have like a truss roof, prefabricated truss roof, you can't cut any timber within that roof. Good thing with truss roofs is that they're usually spaced on 600 centers, so you can fit these ladders, which are 550 millimeters wide, you can fit them in between two trusses. Now, when you look, just to explain how the truss looks like, you would have a ceiling joist, then you would have an H rafter connected to the ceiling joist, and then you would have an extra timbers going on like that, and possibly one to the middle, and they're all going to be connected with a plate in between, and you will not have a ridge that will link up all these truss members in between. So they would come from factory on the lorry as one big A-frame like this, and they will be all pre-assembled and then just placed up on top of the house, on top of the wall plates, to form the roof structure. Now, if you have them, you can't cut any of these members. You just can't do it, because as soon as you do that, you will seriously jeopardize and weaken your roof structure. So if you have a traditional cut and pitch, you can cut one and trim it. If you have a truss roof like this, you can't cut any of them. But most likely this gap between two trusses will be big enough to install one of these ladders. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this binder as my guide point, and I'm going to cut this joist plumb down on that section, so I can install a 4x2 in between this and this joist here, and I'm going to cut this middle one out to accommodate to fit another trimmer 4x2 across that end to allow me for the full length of the ladder. And then I'm going to reuse this cut out of the joist so I can refit it further back down to accommodate for the width of the opening. Here we got our ceiling joist that we have removed. And cut it in the length of the opening. Now, because my plan is not to reuse the ceiling, because this is only 9mm board, and if you watch carefully there is sagging in between joisting. They shouldn't use 9mm. Now, modern standard is to use 12.5mm on the ceilings with 400 centers between the joisting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to counter button the whole ceiling with roofing buttons across the joist, fix them to the joist, leave that existing ceiling in place, and then fit plasterboard underneath that. So in order to accommodate for that ceiling height drop, for new loft hatch, I'm going to install first couple buttons that I'm going to use for my ceiling and use them as offset for the loft ladder. Now that being done, I adjusted that button there. The hatch is able to open. So now I can carefully swing that hatch open down and fix the frame sideways into our joisting. I can do 4 fixings. I'm going to use chunky bolts, and I'm going to make sure I don't over tighten it, because we don't want to deviate the frame of the hatch. We don't want to bend it and bow it outwards, because that will then jeopardize our nice neat gap between the hatch and the frame. We want to keep that intact. Right, I'm going to use these frame fixings. They are Torx head. They're designed to fix door and window frames into masonry. You can use them on wood as well. They're designed for 6mm hole in masonry. But in wood, I'm gonna pilot drill 5mm through the hatch frame, but not into joist. I'll drive it directly into the joist. I'll need T30 Torx bit for correct fitment into the head. And good thing with them is they have a chunky sharp thread all the way up to the head, and you can tighten them nice and tight without actually them pulling fixing material back to the joist. So this will not pull the frame to the joist. It will keep it nice and straight. Now, let's show you close. Here's one bolt, another one, and we got here one there and one here. They are chunky bolts, and as you can see, it comes through the joist, and that's nice and chunky, solid. You know now that this loft hatch can't fall down. And then once that is done, close the hatch and check for the gaps. That's the gap what we're looking for, and if they're not parallel, you can do adjustment by packing, slackening each one of the screws and just packing around. But in our case they are nice and straight and parallel, so I don't need to do any packing there. Now I can remove these supporting buttons and then little blocks of wood that I put to simulate for our plasterboard. Now the next step will be installing the lock and then trimming the steps down and installing our feet. Now this as well comes with it, and this as well. So the lock is in this type. This section is a keep, goes on a frame, and this section is a lock that goes on the door. So at this point, lower the hatch down. Now it screws right. The keep, this small piece, will be fixed with M6 by 16mm bolts, and the latch, the chunkier bit, will be fixed with these wood screws supplied. So locate, try to bring this closer. That's a bit better. So locate this lug into the hole. And then fix through it. Make sure it sits nice and square. Don't over tighten it again. Just make it tight. The chunky bit of the latch goes downwards, and we got our M16 bolts. You can thread them in. And don't use power tool. Use your hand screwdriver. The holes on this latch are slightly elliptic or oval, to allow for fine adjustments up and down for the latch itself. Just tighten it, do not over tighten it. At this point, we can close this hatch. Here's our little hole. Here's a hook with a screw. So hook goes to the end. There's a little hole there, and we're going to fix the screw in like that. And all what we got left is this little excursion, plastic excursion, and this round hook that will go through the center hole of our hatch in like that. This is how that door lock assembly looks like. Now the final step is to trim the lower section of the ladder We're going to do that by just opening ladder down like that and placing the lower section. Don't know, can you see there? Yeah, we're just placing the lower section out of the way, supporting on anything like a bench or like a ladder. And then we have to measure up from end of the second section in line, in that line, down to the floor. As you can see here, we are measuring from that point there of the second section down to the floor in line with the back of it. Now you can use a straight edge and just put it on tight and flush with the back of the ladder and mark up on there, and that's how long now our piece of ladder there needs to be. You can use tape measure or you can just use this. This is more accurate method because tape measure can bend its way around. Then we can just place our mark on one end and transfer the mark onto the other side. So in short lines, we transfer that measurement in line with the back of the ladder. So that measurement is being transferred there. So now I'm just going to put a bench there, put a square cut down on our mark, transfer exactly the same height on the other side and cut it there. So here's our mark. Mark it there. Just to double check it. That is on 25 inches. And the same mark on the other side. 25 inches. Mark up there. Cut the excess off. Good thing with this is camera is on the way. The thing is, you get yourself a nice little skirting ladder to reach top of the skirting. And the very last thing is with the green bag, you got the feet, and there should be 2 screws in it, yeah. So the feet will be down like that. So we fit them with a wider bit towards the bottom. Place them on, and there's a little screw hole on the end. Now that is one fully completed ladder installation, and if you trust yourself you can go up and down. If not, you can get someone else to go up and down for a test, just in case if you can't trust yourself. But in this case I can, so there you go. Up and down, and it works. And that is how to install Werner loft ladder 3-section timber line. One of the things I forgot to mention is when you do all of that, just lubricate all moving parts. Helps even on the springs as well. Just make it last longer and quieter. A little bit on the latches itself. Right, and that's how I install this ladder. Ta-da!